And what we want to do today in this conversation is, and what I want to do is to get your take on if we go really back into the oldest ideas in Christianity and the Orthodox tradition of what it means to be a man, then what do we take? So I thought where it would start actually is, are there particular church fathers in the Christian Orthodox tradition which you think have spoken to you and have been relevant regarding the understanding of man, woman, and the relationship between them?
Well, I think many of them have spoken to it in a relevant way, particularly through Genesis, right? So we need to either believe the Genesis account or not. And one thing that's interesting is that marriage itself really is grounded in the book of Genesis. And so if Genesis isn't relevant to us, if it's all, purely allegory or something like that, then there's not really any reason for societies to have this idea of marriage. So it's intimately tied to divine revelation. Doesn't really make sense unless you're, I don't know, trying to gain, if you're a woman trying to marry an A-list actor and get half of his, stash, I guess marriage can make sense and that's in that way. But,
Mhm.
in the modern secular atheist sense, I don't really see why anyone would get married. It just seems like a formality that's not really relevant. And I think the younger you go, the more that, they've been indoctrinated, they see it that way. So, marriage only makes sense in terms of Genesis. And I think when it comes to Genesis, a lot of church fathers the majority have been pretty explicit that they have a historical view of Genesis, that it was a 6-day creation. Basil has the Hexameron, 9 sermons on the historicity of Genesis. There's really only a couple church fathers that even kind of somewhat diverge from the 6-day narrative. Maybe Greg of Nyssa. I don't count Origen because he was a heretic, but Augustine has the view that it's an instantaneous creation, not a 6-day creation, but that doesn't support theistic evolution. So most people who want to try to argue a theistic evolution or an evolutionary worldview in Orthodoxy are combating, again, almost all the church fathers,
Mhm.
except for, and again, Augustine's not, there's no, it doesn't afford any evidence for the evolutionary view, because he
Mhm.
just has this weird instantaneous view because of his problem with God acting in time and space. So because he has a absolute divine simplicity view, he struggles with this in the Confessions. He says, I don't see how God could create in time and space if he's an absolutely simple eternal being. So
Mhm.
thus what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman in our view is kind of tied to the Genesis narrative.